"Honey, I'm pregnant with triplets." Those were the words my wife Alissa said to me across our dinner table, sliding an ultrasound photo toward my plate. 3 distinct shapes, 3 lives. I stared at that image for what felt like an eternity, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. My name is Jeremy Jeremiah, and I'm about to tell you about the night my marriage exploded. I set down my fork carefully, the metal clinking against porcelain in the silence. 6 months we'd been sleeping in separate bedrooms. 6 months since I'd touched her. 7 months since our anniversary. The last time we'd been intimate, before I left for Singapore at dawn and didn't come home for 2 weeks. I picked up my wine glass, took a slow sip, and looked into the eyes of the woman I'd loved for 6 years. The woman who was trembling, waiting for my reaction. "Congratulations," I said, my voice unnaturally calm. Then I asked the question that changed everything. "Who's the father?" The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. She froze completely, caught. And in that moment, watching her shatter, I knew every horrible thing I'd suspected was true. Don't forget to support my channel by hitting the subscribe button and also sharing the video to families and friends. Let's continue. But let me take you back 7 months, because that's where this really started. Our anniversary. Alissa wore that blue dress I loved, the one that reminded me of the night I proposed. We laughed over wine, made love like we hadn't in months, and I whispered against her neck, "Next year, let's try again, for a baby." She'd cried. Happy tears, hope tears. We'd been through so much, the miscarriage at 4 months that nearly destroyed us, 2 failed IVF rounds that cost us $47,000 and left us emotionally bankrupt. The doctors said her endometriosis made natural conception nearly impossible, less than 5% chance. But that night, we tried anyway. One last time, one perfect night. Then my phone rang at 5:43 the next morning. "Mr. Jeremiah, we need you in Singapore by tonight. The contract's falling apart." I looked at Alissa sleeping beside me, her hand resting on my chest. I should have stayed. God, I should have stayed. Instead, I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'll be back soon." That was the last morning we woke up in the same bed. The next 6 months became a blur of hotel rooms and video calls. I was building our future, I told myself. Safeguard Systems was exploding. The government contract my business partner David Sterling and I landed was worth $12 million. I was the face of the company, flying to Tokyo, London, Berlin. Meanwhile, Alissa ate dinner alone. I'd call her at midnight my time, 8 a.m. hers, exhausted and distracted. "How was your day?" I'd ask, barely listening to her answer because I was reading emails. She stopped telling me about her freelance design projects, stopped mentioning she was lonely. Then came the separate bedrooms. "Your calls wake me up," she said one night, her voice flat. "I have a client deadline. Just use the guest room." It was supposed to be temporary. It wasn't. I missed her birthday dinner, stuck in a meeting David scheduled, forgot our anniversary flowers because I was negotiating a contract extension, came home to find her asleep on the couch instead of waiting up for me. David was always there, bringing groceries, fixing the leaking sink I'd promised to handle, being the man I stopped being. I just didn't know how much he was actually doing. 3 months ago, my gut started screaming. Alissa stopped texting me during the day. When I called, she was always busy or in the middle of something. She started wearing perfume again, that jasmine scent she wore when we were dating. She smiled at her phone in ways she hadn't smiled at me in months. So I hired Rebecca Torres, a former FBI agent turned private investigator. "I need to know if my wife is cheating," I told her, hating myself for the words. Yesterday, Rebecca handed me a manila envelope in a coffee shop parking lot. I sat in my car and opened it with shaking hands. 32 documented visits from David to my house in 3 months, always when I was traveling. Photos of them at restaurants, intimate tables, wine glasses touching. One image stopped my heart. David leaving my house at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, but the final document destroyed me completely. A medical record, an IVF consent form from Dr. Hope's fertility clinic. Alissa's name at the top, David Sterling's signature as partner. Date, 6 months ago. Cost, $15,000. My best friend paid to father my wife's children. I sat in that car for 2 hours, staring at the evidence. My phone buzzed. A voicemail I'd ignored 3 months ago. I played it. Mr. Jeremiah, this is Attorney Wilson from Safeguard's legal department. We've found concerning financial irregularities linked to David Sterling's expense account. Can we schedule a meeting? I'd been too busy to take that call. Too focused on building our empire to notice David was stealing from it. Too absent to see him stealing my wife. I opened my laptop right there in the parking lot and started digging through our company accounts. It took me 4 hours to trace everything. $340,000, siphoned over 18 months. Small amounts, carefully hidden. And that $15,000 payment to the fertility clinic? Taken directly from our operating account. David hadn't just betrayed me. He'd calculated every move, made me travel so he could play hero. Gaslit me into thinking I was the bad husband while he positioned himself as my replacement. I texted my attorney, "File the papers, all of them, tomorrow." Then I drove home to face my pregnant wife and ask her who the father was. Now, sitting at this dinner table watching Alissa's face drain of color, I felt strangely calm. I'd had 3 months to prepare for this moment, 3 months to imagine every possible conversation, every excuse, every tear. "Jeremy, she started. "Don't." I held up my hand. "Not yet. I need you to sit there and really think about your answer, because whatever you say next determines everything. Our marriage, these babies, your future. So choose your words carefully, Alissa." She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. Answer the question. Who fathered your triplets?" The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Alissa looked confused, terrified. I stood calmly and walked to the door. David stood there with groceries, his usual concerned expression painted on his face. "Hey man, I was just checking on Alissa." He stopped when he saw my face. "Come in, David," I said pleasantly. "You're right on time. Alissa just told me about the triplets. Isn't that wonderful? Though we're having a small disagreement about paternity. Maybe you can help us clear that up." David's confident mask cracked just slightly. David stepped into my house that he'd been sneaking into for months, and I watched him calculate his next move. He was always good at thinking on his feet. That's what made him a good business partner. Made, past tense. "Congratulations, you two," David said carefully. "That's incredible news." "Isn't it?" I smiled. "Triplets, 3 babies. After years of infertility, it's practically a miracle. Medical science is amazing these days, don't you think?" Alissa made a small sound, almost a whimper. David's eyes flickered between us. "Jeremy, what's going on?" "What's going on is that I've spent 3 months learning some fascinating things." I pulled out my phone, opened the photo gallery. "Like this, you leaving my house at midnight, or this, you and my wife at Romano's, that romantic Italian place. Or this," I held up the IVF consent form. "Your signature, authorizing $15,000 for fertility treatments. Want to explain that, partner?" The mask fell completely. David's face went pale. "You paid to knock up my wife," I said quietly. "Using money you embezzled from our company. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" "Jeremy, please." Alissa stood up, but I wasn't looking at her. I was watching David, watching him try to find an angle, a spin, some way to salvage this. "It's not what you think," David started. "Really? Because I think you've been in love with Alissa since our wedding, where you were my best man. I think you saw an opportunity when I started traveling, and you took it. I think you deliberately scheduled my travel to maximize your time with her. I think you're a calculating predator who destroyed a marriage for your own gratification." "I love her," David's voice rose. "More than you ever did. I was here, Jeremy. Where were you? Tokyo? London? I held her when she cried. I listened when she was lonely. I gave her what you couldn't. My children." I stepped closer. "That's what you think you gave her? We'll see about that." The doorbell rang again. This time, Alissa looked at me with pure fear. "That'll be my attorneys," I said calmly. "David, you're being served with papers. Embezzlement, fraud, and alienation of affection. Alissa, they're here to discuss our options regarding the pregnancy." 2 lawyers entered, professional and efficient. One handed David a thick envelope. The other placed papers on our coffee table for Alissa. "Mr. Sterling, you're also terminated from Safeguard Systems effective immediately," I said. "The board voted unanimously this morning. Turns out corporate embezzlement doesn't play well with government contractors. Security will clear out your office tomorrow." David looked at the papers, then at me, his face twisted with something between rage and desperation. "She loves me, Jeremy. She chose me." "Did she?" I finally turned to Alissa. "Is that true? Did you choose him?" "Choose?" Alissa was sobbing now, crumpled on our couch. "I didn't mean for any of this. Answer the question. Do you love him?" She looked up at me, then at David, her face wrecked. "I don't know. I'm so confused. Jeremy, you left me alone for months. You stopped seeing me. David was there, and he paid attention, and he said he could give me what you couldn't, and I was so desperate for a baby. So you let him pay for IVF treatments behind my back." My voice broke despite my preparation. "You let him play father to children you knew might be mine." David moved toward Alissa, but I stepped between them. "Don't. You don't get to comfort her. You don't get to play hero anymore. Get out of my house." "Alissa," David tried. "She said she doesn't know if she loves you. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. Leave, now, before I have you arrested for trespassing on top of everything else." The lawyers flanked him, escorting him toward the door. At the threshold, David turned back one last time. "Those babies are mine, Jeremy. The DNA will prove it, and when it does, you'll have lost everything while I get the family I actually wanted." The door closed. Silence filled the house like poison gas. I stood in my living room, the room where Alissa and I had danced at our housewarming party, where we'd opened Christmas presents, where we'd grieved our miscarriage, and I felt the full weight of betrayal crushing my chest. "Jeremy," Alissa whispered behind me, "please, let me explain everything." I turned slowly. "You have 5 minutes. Tell me the truth, all of it. And then I'll decide if you're still my wife or just the mother of someone else's children." Alissa collapsed onto the couch, her hands covering her face. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "It started 4 months ago. David had been coming by for weeks, just being friendly, checking on me. Then one night he brought wine, and we talked about you, about how much you'd changed. He told me he understood because he was lonely too, that his work-life balance was suffering. He lied, Jeremy, about everything." "So you slept with him?" "Yes." The word came out like a confession at church. 3 times over 2 months. I felt horrible each time, disgusted with myself. I tried to end it, but he kept saying he loved me, that he could give me the family we'd always wanted. The IVF. He said you'd never know, that the babies would be ours, yours and mine, and we could just move forward. I was so desperate to be a mother again after the miscarriage, after the failed treatments. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly enough to hide it from me. "I know." She looked up, mascara streaked across her cheeks. "I know I destroyed us, but Jeremy, I need you to know something else. David's married, has been for 4 years. His wife is 8 months pregnant with their second child. She lives in Boston." Alissa's face went absolutely white. "What?" "Rebecca found her, Natalie Sterling. She had no idea about you, about any of this. David told you he was single, didn't he? Told you he'd never found the right person?" She couldn't speak, just nodded. "He played us both, Alissa. Every word was a lie designed to manipulate you while I was gone. And the worst part?" I felt tears burning my eyes for the first time. "The absolute worst part is that I gave him the opportunity. I chose work over you. I chose everything over you. So yes, he's a predator and a liar, but I created the opening he walked through." We sat in silence, the ultrasound photo still on the table between us. 3 lives, 3 mysteries. "I have an appointment with Dr. Hope next week," I finally said. "We're going to figure out whose children these actually are, and then we're going to figure out if there's anything left of this marriage worth saving."